All right. So, professor, colleagues, and peer reviewers, welcome to our presentation. Our company is Consulting for Real, and our project is Web Hardening Team 3. Featuring myself, Cody Brown, as the team leader, Gabby Hooper as our risk analyst, Spencer Jackson as our infrastructure specialist, and Lynder Kigo as our network defender. Our project has 3 milestones in it, beginning at milestone 1. We knew that during this phase, our main goal was going to be to create our initial material, like our project plan, and identify the security weak points within our server stack. So early in this phase, we created our project plan to give us just a broad set of guidelines to follow. And we knew a big focus needed to be the communication that we had set in place as a group. So we did set specific times each week that would be our consistent meeting dates for the remainder of our project. We set contingencies for any members who may fall behind or may have missed a meeting and how we would get caught back up with them. And the biggest thing that we're proud of is we had set up a buddy system to help divide and conquer our work, but also have somebody to double check behind the work before we implemented anything, so we didn't end up ruining anything in our server stack. So our big thing was going to be our risk assessment. And we knew that we needed to do a lot of pen testing in order to find any weak points in our server. So we immediately began to run pen tests on ourselves to sniff out any areas that were defenseless. In doing so, we did find 5 ports that were left open that shouldn't have been. We found that there were no integrated security plugins or firewalls, and that all the software on our server stack was running on out-of-date software that had known security issues. So this meant that it left us open for extremely easy data breaches, malware distribution, DDoS attacks, and being that we assumed that the password given to us for our server stack from our professor was going to be similar to all of the other teams, we knew that that was going to be a big issue as well. So we wanted to make sure that we kept everything in sight and in tight. So our risk assessment was completed, and now we have to move on to milestone 2. So I'm going to give it over to my teammate.
On milestone 2, our primary objective was to patch and secure the network weak points identified on milestone 1. As we delved into on this phase, it became evident that one of the most critical weak points was the absence of robust tools to safeguard our environment. Upon realizing the lack of effective tools as a vulnerable gate waiting for potential intruders, we embarked on an extensive research journey focusing particularly on modern tools and plugins tailored for the WordPress environment. Our research spanned a spectrum of tools ranging from firewalls to malware scanners, encryption, plugins, and beyond. In essence, milestone 2 wasn't just about plugging holes. It was a proactive step towards building a robust defense mechanism. On steps taken, we fortified our WordPress environment with robust security plugins, actively defending against various cyber threats. Our network became a fortress with carefully figured firewall controlling traffic and filtering ports for enhanced security. Prioritizing security, we diligently updated all software components, ensuring our system was armed with latest defenses. Leveraging Nmap scans, we conducted a strategic identifying potential vulnerabilities, mapping open ports. And with insights from Nmap, we then took decisive action, strategically closing and filtering ports to minimize risks. Recognizing the importance of passwords, we conducted a thorough review, changing and securing them to fortify active points. Over to my next.
All right, so that led to milestone 3. Milestone 3, we went ahead and broke up into red team and blue team. Blue team was me and Lynder. and the red team was Gabby and Cody. So we go ahead and jump into our strategy for defense. For defense, we were constantly monitoring any changes to the SQL coding, any changes to Linux and logins that happened there. We had any of our logins into WordPress, and we had audit logs for all of these things. There was also the back end help that we had from Red Hat. It allowed us to check constant updates on any software we needed, as well as provided constant debugging for anything that got added into the system from anywhere else. It also allowed us to make sure that the ports were not being overloaded with data in any way or another, which actually is something that was happening. Two of our ports were being attacked that way. But using all these tools, we constantly monitored it and made sure that there was no disruption of service. So that led to the main attacks that we had defined happening. There was the password cracking, as they were almost constantly attacking our WordPress and our Linux logins. There was also the SQL attacks, where they tried to inject SQL code into our servers, but the security plugins we had through WordPress helped take care of those, as well as the firewall that got added with that security plugin. There was also a social engineering attack that happened as well, where a bad actor actually pretended to be our professor, trying to get quote unquote information from our server, but that was actually thwarted by our school's actual filtering system and got blocked as spam. So that ultimately led to nothing. And that'll lead it to Cody or Gabby.
So as part of our attempted attacks, for the first 2 weeks of Milestone 3, we were actually given the incorrect IP address. The team had originally changed their IP from what it sounds like. So we were attacking the wrong IP. And when we received the IP, the correct IP, we were given a 3-day extension. So unfortunately, we didn't have the full 2 weeks. But in that time, we did manage to attack it as much as we could have. And these were some of the attacks that we attempted. So one of the things that we did, the first thing that we decided to try were in-map scans, just to get basic layouts of the system, and that returned mostly nothing. A lot of the in-map scans that we scheduled or attempted returned a site appears to be down or unresponsive response, and that a connection could not be established. So this led us to only really be able to find out that they had 3 ports open, which we did use later as part of our defense using the Red Hat backdoor. The next thing we tried was a SQL or payload attack, where a simple SQL injection was attempted, which also proved unsuccessful. We also used Kali Linux and John the Ripper as some password cracking tools. John the Ripper is a very common one that has thousands of built-in passwords. And we tried multiple dictionary attacks trying to find their passwords for both their root and admin accounts, neither of which were successful, unfortunately, and returned no positive results. We used the base list as well as the crack station and uRock list. We also downloaded Kali Linux on a virtual monitor and added the harvester tool to try to glean as much information off their server as we could, and the Hydra tool to attempt password cracking that way using the RockU text file. So in conclusion, the pen testing and defense focuses of Milestone 1 and 2 ended up paying off tremendously. We were managed to defend our server completely and held in place against many waves of attacks from our opposing teams. But the opposing team was also very successful in keeping our advances at bay. So ultimately, we defended our team and were unable to attack their team. So in the end, both teams were successful. Thank you.